welcome to the show. Today we're doing a little bit of a Christmas special. We got together, when we had brought you on as a guest, and kind of this idea started rolling around that me and you had done a World War I or World War II or anything like that yet, and you're very big into World War I, so you brought this idea to us, and we were like, well, shit, well, we got you. Let's do a Christmas special.
Let's take advantage of me while you can.
Let's milk you dry,
Sounds like a good time.
So today we're gonna do a Christmas special. We're gonna do the truce of 1914. I know a lot of people have probably heard the story. It is like kind of one of the things I think is a little bit bigger in World War I, but I think some of the stuff's like misinterpreted, or like the story. The story varies where you go.
Yeah,
right?
It's kind of turned into like an urban legend in a way.
But it is true. It's all facts.
It's all facts. Yeah, this did happen. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, in the middle of war.
Yeah,
This did happen.
Yep. And this didn't happen. There's reasons why it didn't continue to happen throughout the First Great War, World War and everything like that. But it happens very early if you really think about it. It's in the first years.
Yeah, like 7 months, 8 months or something like that after it starts.
Yeah, so you still got fresh troops on the line. And, not fresh. The British have taken a lot of casualties. Everybody's taking a lot of casualties. But I'm saying you still got guys that started the war
that are still on the line. It's still young. That war, again, you never know when a war is going to end, but it's still fresh.
Yeah.
And, like caveat off of that is the whole caveat. Sorry, I got a little turned around. I was thinking about 5 things at once, but everybody said World War I over by Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
World War II over by Christmas.
Yep.
Korean War over by Christmas. So it's kind of like I think this is the first war where you see the trend be set, and that you can tell troops,
right,
it'll be over by Christmas.
Yeah.
And 3 pretty big wars later, it still is the same thing happening, again. But so we're gonna go into 1914, the Christmas truce. I'm really excited to kind of start this and get into it. I'm excited to see what you've got, because you are the World War I will say we all have our own little.
I was gonna say don't even go near the word expert.
No, we're not.
It's your passion.
Yeah.
Like me, I'm not no expert. By no means, but I'm passionate about it.
That's the thing. None of us have been to like school for war history, or
this is all what we did on our own.
Yeah. This is all like just a passion in the sense of we all watch war documentaries,
right,
but I'm saying like there's one war that you just always been more drawn to. Like yours, being the Revolutionary War, mine's the Civil War, yours being World War I, and then if I go up to that era, mine's always been World War II.
Yeah.
Here recently, like me and him were talking about, I've gotten really deep into the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
But I am excited to hear someone that is just as passionate about these things as we are, like to hear your portion, like, and this is like the start. We might do something completely later about World War I. But this is like a good way, I think, to literally break the ice.
Break the ice, introduce it, And again, it's one of those wars I don't think it's talked enough quite often.
No, I don't think World War I is even hit on anywhere near anything else. So.
You don't have any like super high. I mean, you had 1917, like that was a relatively high budget film, but you don't have a whole lot of media coverage on it. You don't really have video games as much. Like every 6 out of every 10 video games is about World War II.
Oh yeah.
Well, even like I was going to mention the movie with Kirk Douglas, Paths of Glory. That has really nothing to do. I think he fought for the French in that one. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not a lot of American. I mean, Sergeant York, which are all from Tennessee.
Yeah.
But but other than that, really not a lot of focus. And always my favorite one, World War I movie we were talking about last week.
Flyboys.
No, not Flyboys.
All Quiet on the Western Front.
All Quiet on the Western Front.
That is the.
I haven't seen the new one, but I've seen the original.
Yeah, I love the original. The new one, it's pretty much identical, but it's like just modern effects, and it really makes it like intense. Like you're right there, you can feel every heart pounding moment, and it's.
Yeah, that's the only thing about those old, like the old war films, is you lose like the like he said, like the effects.
The effects, right?
Yeah. But the story's there. But like 1917, great film. Like I told you, the first World War I movie I ever saw was the Trench with Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Kind of a BS movie, but it was
yeah,
still
yeah.
good.
But I mean,
whatever.
it was just like that was kind of my introduction
Yeah.
into that. But yeah, so let's move into Christmas. Let's move into
Let's
this
open it up.
this truce. So yeah, so we got what the one that the portion that we're probably going to end up talking mostly about, you know, because that's the most highly documented from what I saw. I mean, you might have more on this, but it's the British and the Germans.
Yep.
You know, you got to remember, like, this isn't a World War One review, but there are multiple countries involved, obviously. But really, a lot of the accounts from this Christmas truce comes from
That
the British and the German.
See, that's when I was researching that
Yeah.
those were the main two
Yep.
I was getting.
Yeah, well, the
About-
Russians, they're in, was it the like Russian Orthodox Church or whatever they have, their Christmas day actually falls on a different day than
Oh, okay.
everyone.
That
So
makes
that's
sense.
kind of why they didn't.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
the German. So, just to hit on this real quick, the German Christmas is really what we all celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
Right,
here,
now.
like the Christmas tree came from Germany. Like
Yeah,
they sung
Right.
a lot of the same, you know, Christmas carols and like the lights.
But
and
your
stuff.
traditions and
pagan
things like
origin.
that, a lot of what we do now came from
Yeah.
Came from German Christmas.
Yeah.
So
old Germany.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's I'll go ahead and we'll kind of set the stage. I mean, we're not gonna talk through any of these battles. We're not really gonna try to go super in detail on this, but this is to give everybody an idea of what the battlefield looked like
Mm-hmm.
leading up to Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. Like, I mean, this is the Western Front. You know, Germany is engaged with France, Belgium, and the British
Yep.
at this point, right?
So they're just hitting. So their original plan, it was called the Schlieffen Plan. They wanted to just go into France, take them out, and then turn around and deal with Russia.
Right.
And right in here, you start building these lines because the French were actually able to stop them. And so that's when you start getting the stagnance and
The stalemate kinda.
stalemate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for anybody that's not educated on the beginning of World War One, you know, I know for me it's always trench warfare is what I think about. It's what you were
Same
saying.
here.
But this was a lot of open combat until this point.
Very
pretty much.
mobile, a
Right.
lot of movement.
A lot of open fields, a lot of like what you see in World War II.
Yep.
Is happening in the beginning of World War One, and then they, like you said, they hit this stagnant. Like the French were able to stop them,
Yep.
and you kind of get this stalemate. And then once you get that stalemate, nobody can start moving further. They
Yeah.
start digging fighting
Now you
positions.
start
The,
digging
ca-
fighters,
the
yeah.
casualties are just so enormous. They've got to do something. You know, you can't just sit there and shoot at each other standing up in an open field.
Right.
So they're literally just taking their e-tools and just scraping enough land, just, you know, and they're laying flat. You know, that's kind of how the trenches start, is there's just enough for everybody to lay down and be able
Right.
to come up and shoot and
Go
duck
back.
back down. And then eventually it just kept getting deeper and deeper and then more.
Yeah, because what the first trench lines or whatever, I guess, where the first fighting positions are starting to be dug on both sides. They were saying like you were saying it's like 3 to 6 inches,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just enough to like
Just a small fighting position, just to pop your head up, take a couple shots,
Yep.
then
Go
you're
back down. And I kind of think the way I think about it is like the siege of Yorktown, like we were talking about, in the sense of like it's all they're still using pickaxes and shovels.
Yep.
The
Yeah.
e-tool is not even really like
Yeah.
that multi-functional like the ones that we all carry.
Right, I think it was just the shovel handle and
Yeah.
left it on it. I don't think it wasn't collapsible or nothing.
Yeah, no,
back
you
then,
had to
right?
like sit and attach it and like screw it on the head of it
And then start.
And then
And
start
then,
digging
so
or
that
whatever.
was the only, not like nowadays where we fold up and we put them in a case like that
Yep.
nowadays.
Yeah.
You know?
So how many of those guys do you think probably started those like by hand?
Oh,
Like
God,
not even
probably
like
their helmets.
Yeah,
you know,
like
yeah.
anything
yes.
you can use.
Anything. To
And
get
that's,
some-
you know,
yeah.
it's funny, I don't want to jump back to it, like, I kind of picture the Battle of Little Bighorn, guys were using like pans or
Yep.
something,
Yeah.
you know, what they could to dig.
Just to break the
make a
ground down and
fighting
start.
position, yeah, just to break that ground.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. So like yeah, moving into like trench warfare overall to kind of set the picture of what's happening. These guys are, like you said, they started out 3 to 6 inches, and then they start slowly. Everybody's like kind of improving that
Yep.
fighting position, and then by Christmas, you start seeing the first, like, they're not even all connected at this point.
Mm-mm.
Like, we're talking about, like, mine and your platoon might have this Doug, this
Break,
platoon might
break,
have this
yeah.
Doug, but we're not even connected all the way across.
You know, that
yet.
trench makes sense though, because after a while, like say you got this small fighting position, but if you're there for a long time, man, I want to sit down and we ain't moving. So
Yeah.
I guess you do start digging
Yep.
a little
further
deeper.
down.
Where you
Well, and
can sit
also
down,
for
lay
movement,
down.
because if you have one spot that you're sitting in and they bring up artillery, there ain't nowhere for you to go.
Yeah, you gotta
Yep.
go drop.
So
right.
you expand that way. There you can get
Spread out.
You don't have to sit in one spot.
So not like because the map shows, positions, but in real life they were, like I said, it wasn't one big old long trench. So it was
Yeah.
like sections of trench then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then even in the beginning, like, it's even smaller.
Like I
Like,
said,
it's like
two
platoon.
platoons
Yeah, it's
here,
like
yeah.
platoon size.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, like, your platoon, my platoon, his platoon eventually would, like, connect.
Connected.
So now the whole company is, like, together.
Yeah.
And then, but this company is not connected to, B company.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where you start seeing trench life become a thing. And, like,
Yeah.
that's what's, I'm telling you right
a
now.
new details like sandbags. You're digging trench
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
And hearing what these guys, I mean, watch documentaries. Like, just go look at. Just don't even take what we're saying. Like, go do your research and go watch it, because dude, it will tear your heart
It
straight
is.
from your chest in the
Mhm.
sense of, like, not only are you worried about the enemy trying to kill you, but we always talk about on the show is you're fighting the elements.
The elements.
And
So it's Christmas time. It's cold over there.
it's
and you're
cold.
Yeah.
You're
Wet.
It's wet. It's muddy. I mean, just you're miserable.
Mhm.
And
Fucking constantly.
that's what I was just thinking. It hit me when we were talking about before we started the show. You're below ground, so it's gonna be colder
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
than it is up here.
Yep. And you can't
Yeah.
really have fires because the smoke tells them where you're at, and they'll drop
That's where they drop
artillery
everything.
right
Yeah.
on you.
So
Yeah.
that's minimal.
So
That's
you
a
know,
good point. Yeah.
That is a good point. You're right.
And then you got to think about what happens when you start digging in the ground. You start digging a hole. The rain comes or any kind of moisture,
Yeah.
water is going to start pooling and ponding.
Yeah.
Like in your trench. And, like, if you don't have a good drainage system, like like when we dig foxholes now,
Yeah. How we.
the evolution of the foxhole is just insane. Like now you've got, like, your little trench lines you dig inside of it. Like you dig your foxhole, but then you've got supposed to have roll off for grenades and stuff, but you also have drainage
Draining
and
out,
everything.
yeah.
Like they were just digging straight
Yep.
square boxes, like your grave pretty much is
Yeah.
what you're digging
Yeah.
for a platoon size element, and then it's gonna start filling up with water eventually. Like,
It's funny we say like you guys have to make them like that now. No, ours is just
yeah, you can
go to
either.
one side.
There is like slope to the back.
Slope
There
with
is
the,
like
the pitch. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think it all depends on what NCO was taught and everything, but that all stems from
Coming
what these
from-
guys went through.
Oh yeah.
Like how to build a
How warfare
fighting
usually-
position.
Yeah. How it's you get the tactics. You learn
Yeah.
from the last guy, and it's
But also, it's crazy to think about. I mean, they were digging trenches in the Revolutionary War.
yeah, that's one that was brought up there.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
American Revolution.
trench-
It's cool to go to Yorktown and you can actually walk.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Like where I showed you the cannons.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
And I saw a bunch of pictures of, like, there's still earthworks from World War One. There's obviously a lot of earthworks still left from World War II.
But yeah,
But these guys made some, like, positions that lasted.
Yeah,
Especially
I mean,
the
you can see
Germans.
throughout
The Germans
time.
were the most sturdy because they used concrete
To
in a lot of
reinforce.
their trenches.
See, they
Yeah.
Germany wouldn't know how many people there, but you look at military, they were pretty damn advanced. They're always looking for that advantage.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Germany's
Or to
always,
better their military.
yeah.
You got to give credit.
They were
where
always
it's
a
due.
player.
Yeah.
Always.
this-
Oh yeah, they were in the game always.
And and they're still it's like an empire at that. They still have like a
Yeah, it's a monarchy.
they don't have
Yeah,
have
they-
like a dictator.
yeah.
It's like a king or prince or
It's a
whatever.
monarchy.
It was
the royalty
it was
family.
a Kaiser is what you
Yeah.
just call it, the Kaiser.
Kaiser.
Yep.
So
So,
I'm like-
that's what's crazy about World War One is because once it was over, that is what dissolved
Yeah, the German
the
Empire.
Austro-Hungary,
Yeah,
Germany, all that whole because you had they that was crazy is because they were like all cousins. So the Russian Tsar Nicholas, Kaiser Wilhelm, was it King Edward or whatever the British king?
Yeah.
They were all
I
first
think it was-
cousins.
Yeah.
Or
Oh, wow,
so
yeah.
they were all from I don't know, whatever the queen was, you know,
Right.
They were all like her kids and kids and like
But
you know
descendants.
sisters.
Yeah,
kids,
descendants. Yeah,
They
because
were
that's
all
what they did.
direct
That's
cousins.
how they expanded their
reaches,
their
empires.
empires.
Yep. So if you look at pictures of King, I think it's King Edward. I'm probably getting it wrong.
I
but
think you're right.
him and then Tsar Nicholas, they look identical. They look like the same person.
So you can tell they are
They are all
related.
kin.
Yeah, kin.
So that kind of can show, like, leading forward, like when we get to Christmas, how like the British and the Germans like believe in the same.
Yeah,
They've got the same like kind of religious beliefs, the Christmas
Yeah.
beliefs, you know,
I
like
think
things
they're
like that.
Protestant maybe or Catholic. I think Catholic.
So you can kind of start
Yeah.
to see that, like, you can understand, like, it's probably a little different variation, but it's still the
Not like
base
our
principle.
past enemies are just fucking night and day from each
Yeah.
other.
Habsburgs. They were part of the Habsburg family.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, but I mean, it just makes sense that you can see that, you know, like
They're all
the
cousins.
Taliban and stuff doesn't honor Christmas. They don't give a fuck about
Yeah,
that shit.
yeah.
You know, like the Japanese, you know, is different for them. You know,
Yeah.
You know, and like you were saying, the Russians celebrate on a different day. You know,
Yeah.
so you can understand why it is the Germans and the British that kind of have that same shared
Oh,
Christmas. You know,
yeah, their faith and everything else.
Yeah.
And
So
the traditions that go along.
just, I mean, that's what's craziest thing. And this is all, you know, those broke up sections and trenches, and hearing those guys' stories of like living in those trenches.
Yeah.
You feel for them.
You're sitting there, you're just trying to eat your lunch, and your best friend that you grew up with is laying next to you in 6 different pieces from taking a direct hit from artillery, and he's just there.
Yeah, and then
And
you've
you're trying to
also
eat,
got
you know.
wet feet.
Yep, wet feet, wet socks.
That's what the
called trench
wet
foot.
feet.
And
Trench
that's where
foot.
That's where
trench foot
that's
comes
where
from,
trench foot came up then. Okay.
yeah.
But those conditions, man.
Yeah, because they
It ain't
didn't-
so much physical, it's mentally it wears you out first.
Oh yeah.
Well, you
Before
know, like
physically.
any combat that, you know, like me and you have talked about before, any combat scenario, it's always the elements.
The elements.
The elements are just as big of a factor as your enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you're sitting in a mud hole that's 3 inches to 3 feet. Some places it's deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Your feet are constantly wet. Your uniform's constantly wet. You're constantly. I mean, dude, I can't even imagine how many times a day they probably clean their rifles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to keep
no
the mud.
comfort.
Yeah, and
There's just no comfort.
let's go like maybe some leather slickers, but a lot of it wool jackets.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Things
once
that
that wool
when they
gets
get
wet,
Yep.
You're fucked.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, you're miserable.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I saw one guy was talking about, you know, they were reading a letter from like a guy that was a British soldier in the trench, and he was saying that he was talking about how when they first started getting him dug down to where they got him dug down enough to where they could sit down and sleep. And he's
Wow.
talking about you would hope that you could find a sandbag and you could sit on the sandbag and then take your, you know, like your jacket, throw it over your head, and like create your own little personal tent to stay
So
warm.
your
in.
body, you probably just stay within there what you're letting out.
And you know, you're trying to keep your feet off the ground. So like he's just trying to sit like on this sandbag like person. He keeps talking about broken sleep.
Yeah.
It's like your sleep is just so broken. So now you do that for multiple days.
Yeah.
Where does that lead you with, I mean, like your mental state?
Yeah.
We've all been in training positions, combat positions, anything like to where that uninterrupted sleep for multiple days,
On in,
or just uncomfortable, or whatever the nature is, like that psychiatric toll will start to take on you. You know, talking about they were standing on the gun platform.
Yeah.
You know, like the little platform they built to stand on to be able to shoot.
Yeah.
They were talking about sleeping on that, like standing there, like laying up against the cold dirt, sleeping. And I'm like, dude, this just sounds fucking absolutely miserable.
Now, here's my how wide were some of these trenches?
So usually they would come out like, kind of like that.
Okay.
So it usually at the bottom. I mean, you're looking. Well, once they got farther into the war, they got more advanced, and so you're looking at 5-6 feet. But usually, like around this time, you're probably only looking at 2-3 feet, just enough for your feet. But then your upper body's got room to move around and turn and be around people or whatever. So you're probably 2 to 3 feet at the bottom, 4, 5, maybe 6 feet at the top.
So it was just pure misery.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cramped,
in your rain, that's filling up.
Rats coming in and out, eating you, eating your friends, eating your food, bugs. And then with that drainage, you know, your friends who are getting shot, their innards are running in this water, so you got disease.
As I say,
You know, coming in. There's no
whatever.
sanitation hardly.
Yeah.
People are like literally shitting in a hole, and it's just leaking in
Yeah.
to the water.
Yeah.
You know, and it's rough for whenever trenches first started. It was bad.
Yeah, they were saying that it was like a lot of you know, it being sanitary was just miserable.
Mhm.
Like it was just disgusting.
Yep,
The
Constant.
stench alone, the
Yeah,
body, and like I
yep.
say, once you had dead bodies,
Yeah,
only good thing about that, maybe the coldness keeps
Yeah.
that down.
yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
There was one they were talking about too. Like they knew they could only take like the top layer of the water or something like I don't know exactly how they were collecting
Yeah.
this water, but they were talking about collecting water from the trench to shave and take a bath in, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you know take that horror bath
And like I
real
said,
quick,
you
wash your
couldn't
face.
boil it because that gives up your
Yeah,
position.
exactly,
So
yeah.
you know,
So you're pretty much using muddy water to shave
Yeah.
your face. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dude, this just sounds.
I think about like sometimes you go to a pond or you see a slow moving creek, you'll see the top. You know, like,
Yeah.
I was thinking that when I was out there one day with my grandson, I was like, they probably had to skim it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you got.
Not
do.
so much scoop,
Yep.
just
Yeah.
skim that water up.
Try to get like the cleanest spot you
Because
can, but you're
hopefully-
not drinking that.
No,
No,
Yeah.
but still, just the the bacteria or whatever down. Hopefully, that's heavier and down
Yeah.
low. You know.
But dude, it sounds miserable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can understand where these guys are. You know, by the time Christmas hits, like
Yeah.
not only did you just suffer a lot of casualties. There's 90,000 British casualties by Christmas.
Yep.
You know the wars came to like kind of like a little standstill, and they talk about a lot. You know, it's just like Afghanistan and Iraq and stuff with fighting seasons.
Yeah.
But they were talking about how a lot of people just stop in the winter at this time because you need that time to regroup, refit,
Yeah.
Yeah.
new
Wait out the
troops.
cold.
It's
Yeah.
cold. You don't really want to be moving. But the French, the French high command and stuff is still wanting attacks. They still want to keep. They don't want the Germans to get comfortable. That's the problem. Is they're
Right.
afraid that if they sit and wait too long, the Germans will build these nice defenses, and then you won't be able to attack them in the spring.
And it's what happened, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's exactly
pretty
what
much, yeah.
happened. Their biggest fear
Yep.
really
happened
came to
to
light.
light.
Yep.
So the French is still pushing attacks. They're telling the British Army they need to attack, and we see several attacks throughout, the end of the year, and especially in December.
Yep.
I think what you were telling me about ones early in December. The one I know about is like December 17th. I didn't know if like you
You
had
talking about
something
like
before.
the first Battle of Ypres?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like November
Yeah.
when it ended. Finally, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, so they're kind of on the rebound from that, and I can't remember where it was at, but they had just kind of finished up that battle, and then the French was trying to get them to start to push, I think somewhere a little farther south
Yeah.
to kind of take some of the pressure off the French,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
I can't remember where that one was at.
But there's still active combat happening even through the cold months.
Right.
And the last one that I could find anything on was like December 17th. I don't really know who all was. It was the British and the Germans, but the French attacked and they were like telling the British like, you've got to attack as well.
Yeah, you got
If you're going to be here, you're going to be a part of it.
right.
Yeah.
But the British didn't have like a big ass army like the French and the Germans and
Mhm.
everybody else. at
Yeah,
that
because
point.
they were. I mean, figure because
They had what, like, I think they only had like 300,000 people total in the BEF, the British Expeditionary Force, to start with before like the
Right.
professional army.
and it's a longer haul for them. I mean,
Mhm.
they're pretty unfranchised. I mean,
And then you've
basically
already
back-
lost 90,000
Yeah.
by December. Like,
Yeah. That's when they had to start doing the conscription and
yeah, so they do launch several attacks. I don't even know what the unit was, but I did see like 2 British battalions are completely slaughtered
Yeah.
trying to attack German positions, and no German lines are taken, held, or anything
Yep.
after
Yeah.
all that. So
Yep.
you just sent 2 battalions worth of men
And got nothing.
literally to the slaughterhouse
yeah.
and didn't gain anything from it.
While you're sitting back there eating a sandwich and drinking coffee.
So now think about all the other guys that are in the trench. Like you said, like they're probably thinking that, like, oh, high command can send us to get killed.
Yeah.
We're not gaining any ground. I
Yep.
just lost. There's some of these stories where it's like the whole platoon and only like one guy makes it,
Makes it.
or
Yeah.
like after the whole battalion, you might have a platoon size left.
That's it. Yeah, you are the battalion now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's sad. That's rough.
Yeah, and all that happens like sometimes like in a day, 2 days.
Right.
Right, because it's like one big old wave,
Yep.
but then like maybe they don't. Again, it's probably an all day thing. Well,
Yep.
let's try it again.
Yep, pretty
Yeah,
much.
regroup and
Yeah,
go.
regroup
and
Let's
go.
get back in there. Yeah.
So they're talking about in there that, you know, on December 17th, when those 2 British battalions went, like they were talking about even like their wounded being left in no man's land
Yep.
and taking 2 to 3 days to crawl back,
Yeah.
or like they're sending out little rescue parties. And one of the big things that the British Army talked about was that trench warfare hasn't been figured out yet. So
Right.
they're still doing a lot of like sleeping at night, working during the day,
Yeah.
and a lot of dudes are getting killed during the day.
Yep.
And then you see as like trench warfare develops throughout World War One, that shift happens where like you don't go above ground, you don't do this during the day.
Right.
We do everything at night.
At night.
But in the beginning, in this particular time when these trench lines are being laid, these guys are they're still trying to figure it out.
Oh yeah.
So they're working during the day like they would, they're sleeping at night, and they're just getting fucked up at night and fucked up during the day. And it's
Yeah.
like, I can only imagine what their mental state though is
Oh yeah.
by Christmas.
Yeah, because I mean you're just sitting there waiting, pretty much.
Constantly.
There's
Yeah.
nothing you can do to get out of the way. Like, and that's, you know, with like World War II, like, you know, it was hellacious, but you know, you're in an urban scenario and they start dropping artillery on you. You can run whichever
Right.
direction you want. You can get somewhere. You might still get hit, but at least you have the opportunity to run.
To
There
run.
ain't nowhere to go here.
Well, you
You
know,
hear it and you're just like, okay,
Hope it misses.
yeah.
please don't get me
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. Don't hit me.
Or nick me enough to
Yeah.
get me out of here, but not kill me.
Yeah.
So they're also
But
saying
I just held up my hand.
Yeah,
Get me out of here.
Take a piece through the palm. Yeah.
the artillery hits over there,
Yeah.
but you've got a shovel wound to your thigh, and you're like, what happened? Well, I was digging, and you know that thing went up and scared me. I don't know, but I gotta go, boss.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Yeah, the blast pushed it in the leg.
But yeah, so you know, trench warfare just hellacious,
Awful.
both sides.
Oh yeah.
Awful. Yeah.
Living conditions, both sides, everything on both sides. You know, like we've always talked about on the show, we're not pro-German, we're not pro-British or this person that. We just tell the facts. We tell it from both
As we get
scenarios.
them, right.
Mhm.
It's from the soldier perspective in the sense of all the soldiers on the battlefield, you know, are suffering.
Right.
Everybody, like
Mhm.
Germans alike, you know, British, French, everybody is just going through it.
Yeah.
Their mental state is destroyed. The British, a lot of British soldiers wrote about eating the same thing
Yeah.
over and over and over and over and
Yeah.
over and over. You know, the meat, what would you call it?
Bully beef.
Yeah, the bully beef.
It's
You know,
corn. It's
was it
corn,
like-
corned beef.
Corned beef.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just potted meat in a can, you know, and they're like, you would get lucky if you got a loaf of bread.
Yep.
But then, you know, I'm imagining like eating a loaf of bread in a rainstorm, right? You know, like I'm not saying like
Oh,
the
yeah.
jungle's a nom, but like it's raining, there's mud, and you're trying to like eat your bread, and that bitch is
Yeah.
getting wet and
Yeah.
soggy,
Wet
and you're,
bread. Ugh.
and you're
Yeah.
just like, what the fuck, man? I can't win for losing. Like at
Right.
this point,
I mean, but just eat it.
yeah, you just eat it. But I'm just saying,
It's
like,
kind of like me. I mean, like me. I've never touched MRE again. That's just me.
yes.
I've had one. I've had one since I've been out.
Have
It was the chili.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've had one since I've been out. I think a part of you wants to relive that little.
But then
Oh, yeah.
But then as
whenever
soon
I
as
did,
you-
I was like, oh shit.
As soon as you cracked it, you were just like,
Mm.
my
Yeah.
bitch ass ate this for so long. Like, why?
Yep.
Oh yeah. I think I was. I don't know. I was in an army surplus with a buddy, and he goes, "Hey, what do you think of these?" And just I wasn't thinking. I grabbed. I go, "Fuck these!" And I threw it.
Your
I was like,
stomach immediately.
Sorry,
turned.
sir. I had to
Yeah.
go get it. Put it back in the box.
My bad. You know.
Oh yeah, I just grabbed it. Go, fuck these.
That's probably how the British felt about
Yeah.
corned beef.
Corned beef.
afterwards.
Yeah,
Like, they were
dude.
probably-
Yeah, don't
Same
shut. Yeah.
thing, yeah.
So yeah, so leading up to Christmas Eve, you know, that's kind of like the stage of the set. It's just
Mhm.
muddy, wet, disease-ridden.
You're pissed.
You're
You're
pissed.
pissed at everything.
People were getting shot left and right. I will say, the German snipers in trench warfare. The German sniper, I've always had respect for, all the way up, mostly through World War II, and like
Yeah.
just their discipline. They were always like a hard enemy to fight. Like
Mhm.
to the point where the Americans in World War II start calling for artillery and mortars
just for
on
the
known
one guy.
sniper, on known sniper positions just to get rid of that one guy.
Yeah.
So I think this is probably where they got their start. It was in World War One with the sense of like they're popping dudes just like head length, coming up out of these trenches. And the British they talk about it. I'm not saying that they're absolutely terrified, but it was a big enough like nuisance to the point of like you just did not put your head up.
But you got to give respect to the Germans, though, that kind of discipline for a sniper, though, because that fear still carried over to World War II.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
And then to sit there.
How
many hours do you think that German sniper sat there on that line, waiting for one person to make a mistake?
Yeah.
You're not just hitting people on an open field or open targets. Like we're talking about hours.
Being patient, waiting for somebody to fuck up.
And then you've got maybe like a 5-second window of seeing that head pop to get on target. Pull the trigger.
Especially if they're up, maybe they're doing this and they get back down. Like I said,
you've got a very short window to tag a very small target.
Yeah.
You know, we're not talking about waist up. We're talking about
sometimes
and with the real basic scopes.
Yeah, we're not talking about anything sophisticated.
Yeah.
That's what
basically you're probably like your deer hunting scope or
pretty
earlier
much,
ones.
So, and then being on the British side of that.
Yeah.
Like, dude, all I want to do is stand up real quick.
I just want to
stretch, look over just to see what's going on. I'm sure dudes did that. Like, the complacency gets to you, and then you're like, man, like, ain't nobody been shot in 3 days. I just want to pop my head up and look. And curiosity always kills.
Are they still even up there?
Yeah. So you know that dude, that one guy, you know, and you find out real quick. You hear the ting, and you're like, yep. Bill found out today.
They out there, mate.
And you're kind
Yeah.
And you know, I wonder if some of them just like felt kind of invincible to the point of like, fuck it, I want to look like.
Oh yeah, especially.
Well, we always talk about how that fuck it attitude.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you get the fuck it attitude, and you're just like, fuck this, I'm gonna look. Like, Or you know, like you hear a lot of the guys, you know. Later on in the war, they build the trenches up a little bit better, and they got like the peepholes and stuff, and like
they start getting more advanced too.
Yeah, and they're like, don't move the curtain, you know, at night because they got a fire inside of there. The guy moves the curtain, he gets tagged, and you're like, that's all they're looking for. That sniper probably isn't even shooting a target; he's shooting the light source.
Shooting that light,
So like to see that kind of develop early on, and that's where you start to see that push and pull. But I mean, dude, it's just fucking crazy to think about what these guys were doing and where they were at. And so here you have two armies on foreign land. The Germans aren't from France and the British aren't from France, you know. So you got two armies on foreign land with the same base belief line, like you said, Christmas or whatever, fighting each other. And a lot of them, you know, say later on, they're like, why are we fighting? Why are we fighting?
That'd be some of the questions I'll bring up later on.
Yeah. So we're getting ready to move into that portion. So let's we'll take a break and we'll come back and we'll talk about the actual movement out of the trench and
that's what I want to know. Who?
So we're at the part now where, you know, it's Christmas Eve. Let's say that. That's where we're at. We're at Christmas Eve. That's where we start to see, like, you know, the Germans actually initiated all this with the singing Silent Night, right?
Yeah.
Is that what they started off?
Yeah, so Kaiser Wilhelm actually sent little Christmas trees. He sent out a bunch of Christmas trees to the lines in hopes that it'll keep up the motivation to fight. But it kind of did that. As we know, it did the opposite. So they're getting Christmas trees, and I mean, it's the night before, and even into like Christmas Eve morning and during the day, they're still shelling, they're still shooting. So nobody's thinking that this is what's going to happen. But then as the night goes on, things just start getting quiet, and you can hear, you can read people's letters that they sent back home. Like, it got so quiet. There was no birds because I mean everything's destroyed there. I mean, there was no noise, dead silent. And then you start seeing little Christmas trees and candles and lights, coming from their lines. And then all of a sudden you just start hearing singing.
Yeah.
And your lines are close enough to each other where you know what they're singing.
Right.
And they were singing Silent Night for the most part. Those are the reports that you get of them singing Silent Night, or what do they call it? Steel Nacht is German Silent Night.
Silent Night.
Yeah.
And a lot of times these guys, it would piss some of them, like the British guys, it pissed some of them off because they're like, you know, the fuck is wrong with you? You know, we're at war.
Right.
We're over here fucking miserable. What are y'all doing? You're over there singing your ass off and having a great time. Like, it's just bullshit.
Yeah.
But then, like, a lot of them had talked about where it goes from animosity, then they start more yelling at the Germans more jokingly, and then
like the banter begins.
Yeah. And then there was a German officer that had shouted over, "Hey, like tomorrow, you no shoot, we no shoot."
So he was already trying to say, "Hey,
Yeah,
let's try to observe Christmas Day."
Exactly. Yeah. And then so everybody was like, "Okay, maybe this is for real." And then they start hearing singing. Well, then the British finally calm down, and then they start singing along with them, and now they're singing together.
Yeah.
On
So
Christmas
like
Eve
two
night.
different languages, but the same song.
Singing the same song with each other.
Yeah, it's like almost like carry the same tune.
Right.
Just like you said, different languages.
It's all saying the same tempo.
But it's crazy to, you know, like I said, the Germans started, like he was saying, and like Christmas Eve night, they started putting out, the Germans started putting like candles in jars, like little mason jars or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're putting them out on the line, and you know, we saw how long that line is. You know, like this is accounts from like certain parts, and some people didn't do the same thing. The truce didn't even happen in some parts of the line.
It wasn't the whole lot. You're right.
Yeah,
it was
there
just
was
certain
still,
sections.
I think it was like an estimated like 5,000 casualties on Christmas Day throughout the line, 5 to 10,000.
Yeah.
Now from that battle of what's it called? Ypres. You think was this were in the same area they're at?
Yeah. So that they pushed. So the British have, or like the Allies have pushed the Germans out of Ypres originally, and so they're kind of like on the outskirts.
Okay. So this is all we're having. So it's the after effects. A lot of losses.
Yes.
A lot of losses. So
losses.
You know, probably looking for some kind of a peace mentally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like I was saying, like going down that line, right? So like this group, you know, the Germans are singing and stuff, and the British, you know, are they're bantering back and forth, like hollering out jokes or like kind of talking trash, but also like a joke or whatever.
Yeah.
And then in some parts, there's accounts of like British troops were talking about they were so salty with what they were doing. Like he was saying that when the Germans would set those candles out, they started shooting them because they were like, "Fuck you! Like you're not gonna do this shit." Like,
right.
If I'm unhappy, you're.
They were still in battle mode. Fuck.
And like I think they were saying the French still had a lot of animosity towards the Germans, so they didn't part of it. There was no truce, no nothing.
There was very few. There were some French little truces on Christmas Day, but like it was more like go out, handshake, and then that's it, you know, or whatever. Or don't shoot us. Let us go get our dead.
Let that day be, like I said, the no shoot, no fire day. Okay.
So where we really see the truce start to come into play is like 9 a.m. on Christmas Day. But you know, throughout the night, there's the singing. There's even some of the British are starting to put their Christmas trees up, and the banter's going back and forth, and the hollering and everything else. But when I was, you know, we'll get into Christmas Day, but what I was thinking about is, could you imagine, like you were saying, it's dead silent. Everybody's quiet.
And that's what makes you weary anyways.
And then you start seeing them put these candle lights out, and then you start hearing Silent Night. In the middle of the night, you know, like it's dark, and you're hearing the German version of Silent Night, and I feel like there's one of two things that are going through your head. One, it's like, I cannot believe this is happening. This is, like you said, peaceful, like, holy shit. But then the other side being like, what the fuck are they planning? That they're so damn confident to put these jars of light out.
They're trying to let us drop our guard.
Like they're gonna fuck us up first thing in the morning. Like that's kind of, I mean, that's what a lot of these guys are talking about too, is the sense of they didn't know what the fuck was happening.
I bet a bunch of confusion, mixed emotions, like like wait a minute.
Exactly.
Silent Night my ass.
Silent Night right now, but once the shelling started, motherfucker, like. So that's what I was thinking about, was like that whole thought process through that.
Right.
Like it had to be just like a mind fuck.
Oh yeah.
Like you said, it's dead silent. You don't hear shit. It's dark. You're miserable in your hole, and you're like, I would be at home.
And at this point, there's
eating turkey
snow.
or whatever.
Okay, so
There
there's
is
snow
snow,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, they're talking about like
see.
that water
Yeah.
freezing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of them like there was a couple. It was I'm gonna rough quote, but they pretty much said like you could see it was still a battlefield, but the snow was still almost magical. Like it made it nice, you know.
Actually,
Right.
covered up some of the bad.
Yeah, it covered up
Oh,
the bad, and
yeah,
so you could
that's
see
what I
it.
think,
It was
yeah.
beautiful. It was nice to see for a lot.
Wow.
But and a lot of them were a little bit more happy that there was ice in the sense of, like he said, I wasn't there, I don't really know, but from what I was reading, it was like a lot of them were kind of happy about the ice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because like now that it's still miserable. You're cold,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you're getting that sense of relief in the sense of like the ground's hardening.
Hard
Yeah.
enough.
You're able to walk
not as
around a
much
little bit
mud,
better. So I feel like there was just like a whole whirlwind of emotions, like
Well, it had to
circling
be.
around. And so now it's dark. They're singing Silent Night. They're putting out candle jars, and you're just kind of like, what I think is you're starting to get that break.
Yeah.
Like the ground's hardening up.
Mhm.
They're not shelling us. They're singing. So it's got to be a mind fuck though. You're like, when's it gonna end?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're at war still.
Yeah.
This has got to end
Yep.
sometime.
They're either gonna attack us first thing in the morning. They're gonna start bombing us, shooting us, whatever.
The 26th or it's on.
Yeah. So the morning of Christmas Day, like the French and the British government also, higher command or whatever, like I said, I wasn't there, so I'm not 100%. But you see, like the reports starting to come to the lines of like, we believe that the Germans are gonna attack on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So they're trying to like tell the line like, just because it's Christmas, don't let your guard down. Like,
Right.
We believe through intel and things that the Germans are gonna
Attack us.
they're gonna cross no man's land. They're gonna fuck
Right.
you up. So you're getting that report, but then you're witnessing with your own eyes. These
What's going
motherfuckers
on?
are singing and
Yeah.
putting out candlelight and everything, and you're just, I'm sure they're probably sitting there in the hole like, I don't even know what the fuck's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like you said, like some of those guys are taking pop shots at them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's probably your first instinct. Oh.
And I don't think I would have had the mental fortitude to do what some of the other guys did, in the sense of, I definitely wouldn't be a part of this story as the guy that was singing and joking and getting out of the trench and hanging out. I probably
would have been the pissy one.
I probably would have belonged to the
What?
British regiment that was shooting the fucking candle lights out, in the sense of like,
Well, and I was thinking of too, they got this far. What if both sides just said, drop your guns and everybody walk home?
but then that's the other
Nice.
that's the other side. Like you said, I wasn't
Let
there.
them fight their own down.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. I wasn't there, so I think that I would be the pissed off guy. But then really, I didn't go through all the shit that they went through, so I might be the guy that
Because
was sitting
I
there
know,
like,
I know my
fuck, it's
mindset.
nice.
See, that would be my mindset. Well, my mindset is my only way home is through them. So
Yeah.
why am I going to fucking kick back and have a good
Yeah,
time?
we take this day off. That's one more day. I'm not gonna be home.
yeah.
Right.
And I think a lot of the guys that were salty, and I'm not taking away from those guys at all. I think they did what any other soldier would
Every
probably do.
right.
I've never done.
Every right.
Like I said,
But
my
their
way to
thought
home is
process
through you.
probably was the war was supposed to be over by Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to be home in my warm bed with my wife, with my kids, with my family, opening presents tomorrow, and your fucking bitch ass wants to sit over there
Yeah,
and
yeah,
sing
so-
Christmas carols.
Yeah.
Yep.
So no wonder why those guys were mad. Like
Mhm.
that's probably their thought
Yeah.
process. And then the flip side of that, the
You know,
other
a lot of
guys.
those Germans were in unhappy marriages. They didn't want to be.
Yeah, they didn't want to.
Yeah, exactly. They'd rather be getting shot.
They'd rather
Yeah,
be getting
they
shot
were
at line
singing
on
because
the
they were
line.
like, the one time I don't have to.
The
do
young
anything."
ladies out here, I'm not rapping kids, I'm putting fucking toys together.
Yeah, my kids ain't fucking screaming
Yeah.
and shitting all over the house.
You didn't have to work all year to afford a turkey.
Yeah.
yeah.
They're like, oh,
And then it's gonna come out dry.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have to see the in-laws.
Yeah.
And the one time my in-laws were like, I love you.
Yeah.
Good
yeah.
luck.
Shit, yeah.
Before they just talk shit to me in the living room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just, you can understand though, going down the line, this pocket, good with it, this pocket against it, this group,
Yep.
let's go out and shake each other's dicks. Whatever, I don't know.
Right.
I'm just saying every group you could see
Was
the
different.
difference in the sense of like,
Yeah.
and it probably depended on how much fighting, where your fighting was, what type of fighting you did, how many guys you lost, like,
Mm-hmm.
getting into Christmas Day, I think my whole thought process in it is I think some of them just wanted a break.
I think so.
They wanted to take a recess, and then I think some of them didn't want to take the break because it was too hard to get back to it after. You know, like you've ever been going so hard in the paint, like in a training event or deployment, and like you just get to that point to where you're like, I would love to sit down and like rest, but if I stop right now,
I won't do it again.
it'll be hard to get going.
It's like cleaning the house, man.
Yeah.
You start working on cleaning your house, and then you're like, I need to sit down. I shouldn't sit down, or I won't finish.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's the same.
I wake up, Seinfeld's on.
Yeah,
That means
exactly,
it's
right? Yeah. This is my favorite rerun.
Yeah. I do that quite a bit.
So I was just saying, I can understand where some of these guys are pissed off. How dare you?
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are like, I hope to God this is a break.
Yeah.
And then some of them are probably like, if I stop right now, like how am I going to pick up 24 hours from now and go at it again? Like I'm sure there's a lot of different thought processes going on.
Trying to shoot the guy you just shook hands with and had a couple of drinks with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, like we see Christmas morning around like 9 a.m. I don't even know when these stories are told, all these stories are told from people that were there, right?
Right.
But they're also, it's letters that have gotten back, historians have gotten a hold of. People are trying to tell a story and unfold it, but at the same time, you can't really pinpoint all this to one certain place, one certain event.
Unless they mention it.
Yeah. Well, because the military itself isn't going to document this because they didn't want it to happen.
Right.
So the only proof you have is from the letters that are written home.
The letters from home.
Yeah.
And you know, and I'm sure that guy is not putting like some of these letters that historians have found and stuff or gotten a hold of. You have to like listen to the story of like, okay, who's this guy? Where is he from? Well, then he was probably in this unit. You know, this is World War I. This is still 1914. Like you're getting that.
Right.
It's kind of getting lost in the sauce.
That's kind of like what
what unit and everything.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times now it makes researching now kind of nice. You can get a name. A lot of times you can find out what unit we're in, and then you go to your map and say, okay, he was here.
Yeah. And then even though thinking about that, it's looking at military documentation in the sense of, well, he wrote the letter saying, you know, on the 16th he was here, but then the military map shows December 15th and 16th they're over here. You know, you don't know how long they spent there, where they moved through, or whatever. All I'm saying is, like, we're not pinpointing one exact battle line. This is like a general, broad perspective of this event.
Line somewhere,
So we're taking a lot of accounts from a lot of different things and people. So when I say like 9 a.m., you know, don't hold me like pinned to the wall. Like at 9 a.m., this is when everybody shook hands. Like, no, I'm saying like the morning of Christmas Day, the banter picks up a little bit more between the Germans and the British. And
so like
people start getting a little...
Mostly the Germans, actually.
Like came up and out.
Yeah, so there's one.
You got the...
Let me look. So the only one that I could find where the British initiated was the Essex Regiment 2nd Battalion. They were the first ones on the British side that I could find that were the ones to initiate it. Other than that, it was the Germans mostly.
It was the Germans,
And what they were saying is like they were bantering back and forth, like joking, and then they were getting a little more. Like everybody, as like time went on, got a little more brave.
Yeah,
and,
so
like,
they kind of like look, you know, and then they go a little
well,
higher.
nobody shot.
It wasn't just, hey, how about no shooting?
Some of them had white flags.
Yeah.
They were holding up, and some of them would stand up with two hands, like I'm unarmed.
Right.
You know, and things like
so
that.
there was little signs like that saying.
Yeah.
So eventually.
And then on like in some cases, you know, there was an instance where two German soldiers stood up completely unarmed. And they sat there and watched them for probably like 30 seconds walking towards them, and they were just like, hey, you know, it's Christmas, Merry Christmas, things like this, and they still shot him dead.
See, so
that's what I was saying. It wasn't just like it's Christmas Day morning, everybody just stood up and was like, hey, buddy,
this is like, I dare you to try it.
Right.
Yeah.
I won't if you won't, but I'm still gonna act like you are.
Yeah.
And then there were some instances of
that's really like, sad, but you gotta think you're at war still.
Yeah, it's your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know that say whoever shot him, like, mother, you just shot at me. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing is like a lot of the conflict was still happening hours before these guys come out of the tree. You know, there's still artillery shells going off, like you were saying, 5 hours before this, or Somebody, your best friend, me and you could have been sitting in a hole, or me and him, and one of you get killed, and then I'm standing there like, how dare you come out of your trench like wanting to be friends?
You
shot my
Merry
buddy,
Christmas.
you know? Like,
Right, yeah.
So Merry Christmas, motherfucker.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly,
I mean.
Well, and then, if you're kind of on the edge of where this truce is happening, to your right, you're hearing battle, and then if you're on the other side to the left, you're still hearing battle.
Right.
Constantly. Like, it never stopped, even on Christmas Eve. It constantly went. So
Right.
then you're seeing this, and you're like, well, is it bleeding? Like, what's going on?
Right.
Over here is quiet, but over here is really loud. So which one do I go with?
Like we were saying, this is down to like, it's pretty much like, I won't say that it is 100% this, but it's like platoons.
Yeah.
You know, or
like,
deciding like this platoon or this company and this company are like, yeah, we'll be at a truce, we'll hang out.
Right.
But then you go down the line a little bit further, and where you got that break and everything, and like this company and this company are still shooting one another on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's what I was saying. You can't really pinpoint it's like this one big thing. Like it's pockets of this happening.
Or they're probably, you can probably go to their markers are probably somewhere where they met, as in like historical landmark markers.
Oh,
there's going to be, you're going to see rough areas, but the ground was so jacked up back then from all the shell holes. There's no way you can say this spot was where this guy was.
Right, but the general area.
But in this
that
100 square yard area,
they,
this is where this soccer game was played or whatever.
Right.
Football.
So.
But they were even saying that a lot of what helped in some of these pockets, the Germans spoke English.
A lot of them spoke
because
English.
they actually worked as waiters and stuff in England, so they learned
knew that
English.
there was really no language barrier.
Mm-hmm.
They could.
It made a lot of the British guys feel stupid.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these guys could speak, but Bavarian dialect. They could speak like 3-4 different languages.
Right.
These German guys, and these guys are just
English.
country bumpkin, fat farmers from England or whatever, and they can only barely speak their own language.
Yeah. So
I know some Gaelic.
They said some of the banter was like the British troops would holler out like, "Hey waiter," like waiter, waiter. So I could understand that in the sense of like that banter, the laughing and the joking, and then you start to build that little bit of rapport. Really, you're building very fast, but you can't trust the other side.
No, you're still.
But once you see the other side take the effort to stand up, I would say like come out of the trench, hands up and things, and you've been bantering back and forth for the last 2 hours, like making jokes. It did probably initiate the other side to be like, you know what, maybe it's okay, and then next thing you know, you have this. You have.
But I think that's the crazy part. You had two countries, two armies, basically believing in the same thing.
Fighting in a foreign land.
Fighting in a foreign land.
Yep.
And then that's where.
Well, and you also you also had the reputation of the Germans at the time, because so whenever they tried to push in through Belgium and try to take France quick, and the Belgians are the ones that really put up the most resistance and slowed them down to the point that they're there. They took it out on them. There were tons of stories of just merciless slaughter and executions of Belgian civilians, like kids, women, from the Germans. And so of course propaganda, so everybody has seen those old posters of a fucking gorilla with huge fangs with the German army hat on, because they're devils, they're merciless killers. And so all that's in your head too, like these guys are just bloodthirsty, they don't give a shit, they want to kill everything.
Right.
And then all of a sudden these dudes are coming out and laughing with you, and you're just like, well,
what the fuck?
What the fuck is going on? This isn't what I know about you.
And I think that's why, this is skipping ahead, but this will never happen again in World War I. Never.
No, this is just a one.
And I think the reason why it doesn't happen again is because, like we talked about in the beginning, this is still when the true army, and I'm not saying that anybody that served in World War I after this point is not true military, but we all understand the replacements and people joining the war effort later and things like these are all the guys that were in the army before the war broke out.
Right.
So these are well-trained professional soldiers in the sense of they've got years of military service. They know
they're trained.
Right. So, and this is the first time that the war's kicked off.
Right.
Now, next year in 1915, the war's been going on for so long, the casualties amount is so much higher.
Yep.
Now you're seeing people join the war effort in the sense of, well, I wasn't going to get involved, but my brother got killed, or my cousin, or my uncle.
Right.
And you're not going to see this repeated again because it's like, they don't give a fuck if you want to sing Christmas carols. You killed my cousin in 1914, and now I'm going to fuck you up in 1950.
Yeah.
It built that hate.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
You
it
see it on all
worse.
sides kind of start to build.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they all just, it was just hate after that.
I think the reason this happened was all just the perfect storm in the sense of like,
yeah,
you've still got troops from, you know, in the army before the war started. They've lost people. They've all been fighting for 6-7 months in just hellacious conditions. The trenches have started. I think the reason why all this comes to happen is like, I think they all needed a break.
Yeah.
I think everybody needed to take a little bit of time off, you know, and just have 10 hours of.
And this trench warfare changed World War I warfare.
Yeah. Because now you see after this.
And it wasn't just, I mean, it didn't just affect, I mean, it affected the world.
Yeah.
From then on out until now.
Right.
You know, the trenches were the reasons for developing a tank, developing, combat airplane, air power, recon, things like that. Like, it was because of the
chemical
trenches.
warfare.
Yeah, chemical
warfare.
All of it.
Huge.
How to get rid of if I can't abruptly take my enemy out, what can I do to soften the enemy?
Exactly.
Right.
Or when I do the
mustard and nerve gas.
Yeah.
It was all because of trenches.
Yeah.
So I think the reason why we see the Christmas Day truce is the hellacious fighting that it took until that point.
Right.
But two, it's still very new, very fresh.
Yeah. And I think a lot of them too, go back, they probably did have hope of it being done by Christmas.
Yeah, they just wanted to be home.
It's funny how, like when you go back, how everybody uses done by Christmas.
Yeah.
In a lot of wars, done by Christmas.
Yep.
And I just think they were.
And they knew they weren't.
Yeah.
You just dug this fighting position that you've been
in
for the last 3 weeks.
And you're stagnant.
And nothing's changed.
Nothing's
the
changed.
war's not going to end by Christmas.
Yeah.
Here it is, Christmas Day, your enemy is singing Silent Night. And I think that's the first time that, like, I don't think that this whole thing was based off of, like, goodwill towards men. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I think it's, like, a lot of factors led into this one thing, but I think it is the first time that you see true humanity in warfare.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense of, like you said, the Germans have been painted from the beginning as this, monstrous killers to the British, in the sense of they weren't in Belgium, they weren't in France when the Germans invaded and all that.
Right.
So they're coming into the war with this picture in their head that the Germans are just these barbaric.
Yeah.
They're the Vikings.
They're baby killers.
They're murderers, right?
Yeah.
And then you're sitting in this trench, so many 100 yards or 100 yards away from this other guy,
sometimes 30.
and you hear the same Christmas carol that you're singing back home, and they're decorating the same way. I think that humanity starts to slip in, and you're like, well, maybe this motherfucker ain't so damn bad.
Yeah.
He's just a human.
He probably hunts and fishes like I do.
Right. Yeah.
And they find that out when they meet each other.
Yep.
When they do come out of the trenches and
Right.
they shake hands, they find that out about, oh, well, shit, you're just a soldier.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fighting for your country. I'm just a soldier fighting for my country.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's kind of like that whole perspective.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it didn't, even whenever they started meeting, it didn't start out as just like, okay, hey, we're good. Okay, everybody out. It was like, three, it'd be like 2, 3, 4 of them would come out, and then 2, 3, 4 of them would come out, and then 2, 3, 4 more would come out, and it was just like a kind of a slow.
Gradual.
And eventually, so what they estimated is roughly over over the whole line, roughly 100,000 people from both sides participated. In this.
Yeah, they're all out.
But it wasn't just 0 to 100,000. It was like across the whole line. Maybe here's 500. Now it's 1,000. Now it's 10,000. Now it's 20,000.
Right.
Yeah. Slow, gradual build to it.
Yeah, because I'm sure if you're like down the line, you're still engaged, and you look over and you're like, our whole right flank is like in the center, talking to their whole left flank.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
maybe let me go ahead and check this stuff out.
Yeah. So it was a lot of hesitation.
I'm sure it's war.
Oh yeah. So you finally come out, and then you and one say I'm a German. I'm walking out trying to be friendly, and then the British guy comes up, and you're we're right here, but you're still like, what's up?
You ain't trying to pull some shit right
yeah,
now.
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, you're like, do we shake or stab or shoot or?
Right.
And then if it's so, you slowly put your hand out, shake it, and that's kind of how it started. You know, the first guy started seeing the handshakes, and then eventually it was just like, hey, you know, like come over here, and you know they were, you know, there's.
I'm sure too. It's probably like, hey, me and you were talking about. It's like, dude, you know who you would really like to meet? Like my buddy Bill. You know, like, like, hey, come out here.
Yeah.
This guy's from the same, or he was a waitress or waiter in your
This dude
town.
served us. Or something. Yeah.
And I'm sure that's how like more people start to come out. You know?
And it was all like they, you know, the way they would make it sound is they were excited, but it was bittersweet because of all these reasons we talked about. It was
right.
like, you know, all this stuff that you hear, all this stuff that you've experienced, but now the humanity, like you were saying, comes into it, and you're just like, you're torn in your head because you know everything that you know and everybody that you know and trust are telling you that these are barbaric sons of bitches.
Right.
But now you're witnessing for yourself that maybe they're not. So now your head's just like, you know, what am I supposed to do here? You know.
But then also, like, you killed my buddy 3 days ago.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but you know, the guy that you might be talking to might not have done it. But I'm just saying, like you said, there's all these.
Yeah. It's like you killed my buddy, but I guess I killed your buddy too.
Yeah.
Right.
So you know, it's. Then it finally started getting really friendly, and they started like exchanging gifts. Most of it was food. They would swap food because, like, you know, the British we were talking about hated their meat because it was just all they were eating. But the Germans are like, oh shit, you know, I hate my fucking bratwurst.
You don't realize they're probably going through the same damam thing.
Yeah, so just to have something different.
Food,
that was my did they exchange? Yeah. So mainly food.
Souvenirs. There was where did this guy say? Hang on, there was one quote that I really liked. Let me find it.
There was even instances of dudes like swapping home addresses.
Yeah, they would
write letters and stuff too. Like
they would try to visit each other after the war.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Like swapping addresses and a lot of. Well, while you're doing that, I got some gifts wrote down. So like the Germans gave like cigars, right? The British were given, you know, their food rations, and then cigarettes, obviously.
Right,
it was like a whole other thing.
Yeah.
So right here, Bruce Bairn's father, who fought throughout the whole war. Yeah, he was a start to finisher somehow.
Wow.
Jesus.
He says, I wouldn't have missed that unique and weird Christmas day for anything. I spotted a German officer, some sort of lieutenant, I should think, and being a bit of a collector, I intimated to him that I had taken a fancy to some of his buttons. I brought out my wire clippers and with a few deft snips removed a couple of his buttons and put them in my pockets. I then gave him 2 of mine in exchange. The last I saw was one of my machine gunners who was a bit of an amateur hairdresser in civil life, cutting the unnaturally long hair of a docile Boche, who was patiently kneeling on the ground whilst the automatic clippers crept up the back of his neck.
Wow.
I mean, give them fucking haircuts.
Yeah, giving each other haircuts, you know.
It's
like
almost they want to give themselves a sense of normal life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But.
Well, it was probably like, you know, like the conversation starts talking and you're like, oh, hey, Nolan clips hair. And you being like, well,
you know, our hairdresser got blown up through his.
Especially you said bullshit, man. I haven't shaved. My hair's long. I wish I could. And like say, hey, yeah. So
well, Nolan cuts all over hair.
Hey, Nolan, come here. And,
yeah. And I'm sure like there was like an exchange, like, well, I'll give you a pack of smokes for cutting my hair.
For cutting my hair, yeah. Or
and like, so they exchanged a lot of cigarettes. And like he said, the buttons, I like that because
the buttons are really.
They were swapping insignias and stuff a lot too. Like you know,
cool.
like giving each other. Like their unit insignias, or you know, there's even pictures of like, and this isn't show. There's even pictures of like British troops wearing the spiked German hat.
Or their
Germans, and the Germans are wearing like, you know, the British.
And I was like go there where they're kind of like, you know, wearing each other's hats and shit. Yeah,
and it's probably because some British guy was like, why do you guys wear that fucking spike on the top of your head?
I never knew why the spike.
Do you not know what that's for? So it's those spikes
I seen
are
me
actually.
and my grandsons are watching Santa Claus coming to town, and soldiers.
So the spikes are actually. Oh yeah, Burgermeister. So the spikes are actually from like the Franco-Prussian wars, like back in the early 1800s, late 1700s, into the late 1800s. But what they're actually for is when you're fighting with sabers and swords, it's a deflector. You can't come straight down on their head. That thing will ting.
Oh, not the
ting,
sword
yeah.
away, yeah.
It deflects the sword off.
I'll be doggone.
Yep.
And here they
Yeah, I
are
never
still
knew
there.
that.
Yep.
That's cool. Thank you.
So this is
But-
they're wearing it as tradition at
Yeah,
that
it's
point.
it's more traditional. Well, in that, and they didn't know that World War One was going to turn out to be the type of warfare that it was, and that all that is completely obsolete.
Right.
That's why you see starting to go into 1915, into 16 and 17.
Like that movie, All Quiet on.
Yep.
You
It
see
all
the change of
changes.
helmet. You
They
see
start
where that
getting- they
helmet,
start
but
getting that
towards the enemy,
traditional
they
German
start getting
helmet.
the
Yeah.
that
traditional.
German,
Yeah, because you
traditional.
know that does not. They're,
German
they're
helmet.
soft caps mostly. The hard ones they wear are just for their parades
Which-
and shit. But these are soft.
When I
extreme
got
thing.
my first Kevlar, it reminded me of the German helmet.
Yep. I always thought the same thing.
What's even
Okay,
like-
so
But it was
I
a
wasn't
good-
the
it was a
only
great
one.
idea. Perfect. You know, you got
Oh, yeah,
you
got a
in it,
little,
guard
you
your
know,
ears. And,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's even like look at the British in the sense of most of them are wearing soft cap.
Yeah,
You don't
But
get the
by
Tommy helmet till, like,
1917,
16.
they're
They're wearing
wearing
their
like the
little
Yeah, it
flag.
all
band, you
changes.
know?
Pan,
And
yeah.
the uniforms change. You know, it all
Yeah.
everything changes.
Because you're out there fighting and you're like, this doesn't make fucking
Yeah,
sense.
it's testing.
I
on
got
the
a
go,
lead.
You know?
And you can understand where the pan made sense in World War One, and then like the regular.
especially from the trench warfare.
Yeah, and then you look at the American helmets in World War Two. We had the pans too. I call
also,
them the pan, but
yeah,
the platter or whatever. But in World War Two, you see us get rid of that and go to more of
In
like
fact,
the
the-
Kevlar. You know,
Yeah, they
so
were-
it's not
I-
the Kevlar, but
Tommy helmets. Or,
Yeah.
Tommy 10s. I think is what
and
they
I
were
think
called.
some of those pan helmets, a lot of Marines are still wearing them, like during the Battle of Wake Island and
Yeah.
stuff. They didn't have.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
but it's crazy to see, you know,
the innovation.
the innovation of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
how much warfare will change
Yep.
your stuff.
Yep.
So this, you know, this being very early on, like you said, they're coming in with the spikes.
Yeah.
The British still have soft caps.
Right.
Like,
The French
Things
are
like
still
that.
wearing their blue and bright red pants, you know, because it's from the old wars.
The old-
Yeah.
the
'Cause it's-
Prussian,
Because
yeah.
back then they're just lying shoulder to shoulder like the Civil War, just walking at each other.
Yeah.
It's not.
There's no need
it's
for
not of the
camo
kind of
or-
guerrilla
I don't
type
think
fighting.
I don't think a lot of people understand. Like, I think a lot of people do think World War One was like a long time ago, but also I don't think a lot of people understand how close like World War One is to it being 1914, going back to like the Civil War, all these little wars that happened
Yeah,
in between.
50 years.
A lot of things
Yeah.
hadn't changed. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that much in the
Yeah.
sense of like, yes, now you have the bolt action rifle, but
Civil War veterans are watching and keeping
Yeah.
updates with this war.
Right.
that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Like how
Yeah.
close it is.
Yeah,
to
how close it is to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
that generation of fighting.
And you
is-
can't tell me you're sitting there and you see that, bolt action rifle, you're thinking, man, could I use
Oh
that
yeah,
at,
holy shit!
at
You know,
Gettysburg?
God,
I
that'd
could have
been
used that,
amazing,
at,
yeah.
Chickamauga.
And then by
yeah.
the end of World War One, though, you have the production of the tank, the
The
machine
tank.
gun,
Yep.
and
all
really
these other
the
things.
advancement
Yeah.
of
and that sets the tone for World War Two. And then even looking at that, so 1914, World War Two for us kicks off, in the early 40s or whatever.
right.
But our troops were still dressed for World War One
Oh yeah.
when World War Two kicks
Mhm.
off. Like
Yep.
that's
And-
a crazy thought
and
process.
you
to,
know
like,
what's crazy? And
wrap your mind
again,
around.
it shows, people saying, because it's political policy. After World War One, what do we do?
cut the army down,
Yep.
cut the military down.
World War Two.
Yep.
Yeah.
And to me,
And that's why you see guys in Korea wearing
right.
shit from World War II.
Sure, World War Two.
Well, and that's like in World War One, whenever the Americans finally came in, that's why we took such heavy losses in the short amount of time that we were there, is because you can read reports from like the British and the French that were working with us. The Americans would be like, "Oh, we got this one," and the Americans in 1917 were using the same tactics that the British were and the Germans were in 1914.
Yeah, you came in the war late,
Yeah.
but you didn't adapt.
Yeah, they weren't adapted, and the Americans were so fucking cocky. They're like, "Oh, we got this. Don't worry about it." And they're like, "Well, you should do this." And they're like, "No, we got this. Just sit back and watch." And then sit back and watch while we get fucking slaughtered.
All I will say is, that's the American spirit, baby.
Yeah, it is. But you also, you take
You
No,
walk into a
the-
bar willing to
you
fight
take-
10 guys.
Yeah.
you take 500,000 losses in a year.
But if the British,
Yeah.
if a British guy walked out and was like, "Listen, I just came out of there. I fought 10 of those dudes. If you want to win, you got to bite their nuts." And I was being like, "No, I'll fight them bare knuckle."
yeah,
dude.
bare
I don't know
knuckle.
nothing. I'll
Fuck.
scratch his
Yeah.
ass.
Get your ass whooped and come out and be like,
But,
"Man, so
we-
what did
we-
you do? Did you
Yeah.
bite the nuts?"
But we
Yeah.
have done that as a country going in a little area.
Always.
We've
Yeah.
done it.
I think we've earned the right
And I
to do
think
that.
politically, an upper brass going area.
Oh yeah.
Well, let's get back
anyway,
to yeah. That's for a whole other.
Yeah, that's a whole other
topic.
topic.
See, that's why we're gonna have to get into World War One. All three
Yeah.
of us is because.
But did this last all day long?
Yes.
So it was all day long.
So like at the beginning of the morning, that's like we were talking about stragglers.
Yeah.
But by the end of the day, like he said, you got 100,000 guys from both sides
Spread out,
down the line.
Yeah, spread out.
Meeting. Like we said, it's not 100,000 in one spot. This is like spread out down the whole
Throughout
line. We saw
over 250 miles.
Right.
The whole line was like 450 miles from the coast down to.
So the biggest thing that's brought up, like moving forward, is the football, right? The soccer.
The soccer game, yeah.
So when you look at the story, when you think of this story, I've heard about the Christmas truce of World War I. I think most military historian, or historian buffs, or whatever you want to call it, has probably heard or seen pictures.
Yeah, which I have.
But so like I thought it was like I thought that's how it was initiated. Like I got a soccer ball, and then they all started playing. I kind of think about.
That's what I thought. Oh, they got a game together. All right, yeah.
And then they became friends afterwards.
Yeah.
But really, the soccer thing. This is not a picture from like a game they were playing. This is just like British troops playing soccer during World War I. But really, the soccer ball thing, there's no proven facts that there was like a legit game against both sides or they have legit teams or anything. What I think really happened was someone had a soccer ball.
And they're kicking it, kind of like we do it with a football
That's
or
what I was
baseball. We're just throwing it around. So the same thing probably happened.
So there was probably groups of people like kicking like a ball around.
Yeah.
Like in the background or something. But it probably the reason why it got documented, I think, so much, or it was talked about. It became kind of like a folk tale, but I think the reason why it blew up so big is because it probably was something crazy to think about. Like 5 hours ago, we were killing each other. And then you look over and you see like a German and a British guy kicking a soccer ball back and forth.
Yeah.
And you're probably like, holy shit.
Because in Europe, that's their sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be no different than us like standing on the beaches of, some island throwing a football back and forth with the Japanese in World War II. Like, what a spectacle that would have to be in the sense of like
Iwo Jima, you land on Iwo Jima and then all of a sudden they're just like, hey, baseball?
Baseball.
Yeah.
Because they love baseball.
Yeah. And then you just see a couple of guys playing catch with a baseball. And you're like, well, 5 hours ago we were killing one another. Now we're throwing a baseball. I think that's what I think really happened with the football, the soccer thing.
Yeah.
Because there is no factual documented accounts of like a team game.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are documents of. Yeah, I'll let you go ahead.
What I've got is there's reports of the Norfolk Regiment 1st Battalion trying to play an organized game against the 16th Bavarian Reserve Infantry Regiment. But the ground was so, shell hole craters.
There's really no flat ground to get a
wire,
game going. Yeah.
Barbed wire everywhere, shell holes, body parts, dead bodies, full bodies, just laying everywhere that you just couldn't actually. So really what it ended up being is just a mass of people just kicking a ball around, having fun. If it comes towards you, kick it. And then
and I'm sure they were one bad kick away from like these throwing hands,
Oh, right.
Like a German kicks you in the face.
If an official game, and hey, you fouled me tonight, and hey, fuck you, fuck you.
Yeah. So there is.
So it was probably like, let's not get serious. Just kick the ball back and forth.
There was one where they reported that there was a German doctor played as a referee. I didn't see any unit names, but they supposedly played a legit game, and the Germans won 3-2.
No.
But there's no like confirmed official guy, but that's just word on the street.
And I'm sure it happened. It's just. I don't want to sit here and be like.
There's only so much.
They were playing. So like he said, like there's no
speculation,
factual
documentation.
Right, But a lot of the letters and stuff that I wrote home are these guys talking about
a football.
We played football. Like,
I'm
sure that was probably something crazy to describe too.
Yep.
Like, could you imagine like being, the father or the mother or the spouse or whatever at home, and you get this letter, a week before how the Germans or the British like killed each other.
Right.
you know, Mom, my buddy Tommy, or whoever died yesterday.
Yeah.
And then the next letter you get is like your son is describing, like, we played football with the enemy today.
Yeah.
Here, do me a favor. Read this one. From there to the end.
It's in German.
It'll kind of give
You want me to read it?
Yeah.
Henry Williamson, is that where you wanted me to start?
Yeah.
A 19-year-old private in the London Rifle Brigade wrote to his mother on
They called it Boxing Day. That's what they called it.
Dear mother, I'm riding from the trenches. It is 11 o'clock in the morning. Beside me is a coke fire. Opposite me, a dugout wet with straw in it. The ground is sloppy in the actual trench, but frozen everywhere else. In my mouth is a pipe presented by the Princess Mary. In the pipe is tobacco. Of course you say, but wait, in the pipe is German tobacco. Ha ha, you say. From a prisoner or found in a captured trench, oh dear no, from a German soldier. Yes, a live German soldier from his own trench. Yesterday, the British and Germans met and shook hands in the ground between the trenches and exchanged souvenirs and shook hands. Yes, all day on Christmas Day. And as I write, the marvelous, isn't it?
Wow.
Yeah. Like, that's my,
Yeah.
that was a good quote.
That
Yeah.
is. That
But yeah, he
awesome.
was, imagine as a mother or father getting that. And
And
then the
all-
next day, the letter you get
Yeah.
is right back to combat.
Yep.
Okay, but-
I think it probably gave a sigh of like relief.
Yeah.
Yeah, that first,
Or
the
confusion.
yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of confusion about that first letter of them, sharing.
Yeah.
Um,
You almost
and
probably think
almost
the war's
sense of
over.
hope. Yeah, is this
Yeah.
war? Is this over? Is my son speaking of
Mhm.
this? Is over? They're friends, and
Yep.
Yeah.
like I said, the next letter,
We're
Yeah.
back to it.
right back to it.
But yeah, they talked about a lot. Even the Germans and the Germans and the British shared political views on the war. They
Yep.
talked about the war. They, and they, as the day comes to an end, like he brought that quote. I'll bring up the one I found that I like is, at the end of the day, they shook hands and went back to their own trenches. And one of the quotes is, "Today we have peace. Tomorrow you fight for your country and I fight for mine. Good luck."
So,
Yep.
Like, just the ability to fight each other, come out, shake hands, bullshit all day, have fun, but then to know at the end of the day when everything's over, like,
you got to go back to being a soldier.
I
That's
mean,
what I say, that's
yeah.
probably the professional soldier in them.
we got to do our jobs.
We got to do our job still.
Yep. Can I read one more?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, from Captain Robert Miles of the King's Shropshire Light Infantry. Of the Germans, he wrote, they are distinctly bored with the war. In fact, one of them wanted to know what on earth we were doing fighting them. The truce in that sector continued into Boxing Day. He commented about the Germans. The beggars simply disregard all of our warnings to get down off their parapet. So things are at a deadlock. We can't shoot them in cold blood, and I cannot see how we can get them to return to business. So they're like, what the fuck's going on? Even the Germans, like your average everyday German soldiers, like,
Yeah.
what the fuck are we doing here?
Yeah.
I think that's where me and you have talked about before is that the war is happening, blah, blah, blah. But then when you get down to the soldier itself, the individual,
Mm-hmm.
so you take the individual from the British, take the individual from the Germans, they were able to meet, talk, exchange things, like humanity, right?
Right.
And relate.
It is that, well, dude, I'm only here because my government told me to come here. You're only here because your government told you to come here.
Right.
What the fuck are we doing?
Yeah. Like I said, imagine if they would just said, screw it, everybody drop the rifle, you go home, you go home.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's out of here.
Yep.
What that would have done to World War One if all those people met and were just like, you think about 100,000 troops.
You
being
can
on
make
the
a
battlefield?
difference.
If all 100,000 from both sides just walked away,
I'm out of here, man.
what does that do to the war effort
What can they
afterwards?
do?
Exactly.
That many people? What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing
After
you
all the
can do.
casualties you've taken in the past 7 months,
Yeah.
Yeah.
British at 90. I mean, I can't put like a exact number, but
Right.
if the British have already taken 90,000, what do you think the French have taken? What do you think
Probably
the
about 100.
German? What do you think?
Probably a little more. Yeah.
The Germans typically took, in most cases, typically took a little less.
Yeah,
Battle to battle.
Battle to battle.
but it's
Okay.
because like they already invaded, got the ground, and then now like
Mhm.
everybody else is trying to.
But when you think each battle was the Germans versus somebody different.
Yeah.
So like the Germans lost 300,000, the French lost 300,000, the Germans lost 300,000, the British lost 300,000. So between these two, only 300,000, 600,000.
Yeah, those were like the main ones. We were like France, Belgium, and
Britain,
yeah.
To start with.
To
I
start
mean,
with.
they all had their
Yeah,
outline.
it
I mean,
all-
they had,
Right,
they had
yeah,
their,
like I said, eventually World War One, so
they had
eventually everybody
Japan and you know they had their African
campaigns,
their little
yeah.
like groups that the territories.
But I'm
that
just
they
saying,
had. But starting
in
out,
that 7 months, like
and the Russians.
the
And the
casualty list, like
Yeah.
if you then also had 100,000 troops walk off the battlefield,
Mm-hmm.
let's say 50 and 50. What do you do at that point?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're command, you just gotta sit there and watch it happen.
Oh my God.
And even like,
You go to prison, send me.
Yeah.
but I think,
Sounds like a Vietnam veteran.
yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
but I think at the basic soldier level, they didn't want to continue fighting. But I think higher up command had a job to do on both sides,
Mhm.
and you can really tell. So that truce lasted for some a day, for some a week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
all,
so
the,
it-
all,
so
the way,
it
all the
varied.
way into New Year's.
It
Yeah.
va-
So
okay,
you
There's
still
no
have-
groups of soccer games on New Year's Day.
Okay.
Yeah, so you still have these pockets where, like he said, you know, even in that quote, like the Germans are standing on their line, like how do I shoot them in cold blood or what, you know,
Yeah.
Right.
because you just had this truth, you just shook, you know,
You're looking at your homie through your scope now.
yeah,
you
like
know?
as a
Right.
lieutenant, you shook the hands of the lieutenant in the other trench line, and you guys
Right.
discussed what it's like to be lieutenants. The regular
Yeah.
soldiers discuss what it's like to be regular soldiers.
Yeah, especially at NCO. Well, how did you become? You
Yeah,
know, like
so
you,
how do
know,
you command your troops?
to kill?
Because you know
Or do
once
their job.
once
basically.
one side, this is all it takes, right? It just takes for one side to fire the shot.
Yeah, that's all. It just.
Yep.
That's it.
Once that happens, then everybody can flip the switch back on and go
Once
right back
that's
to where
off
they
the
need to
fire-
be.
Nobody wants to be the first one to do it.
Yeah.
Right, but leading up to that first round, nobody wants to do it. So like, you stand there in hesitation.
That's what you hope for, fresh troops.
Yeah,
Well, and that's what they ended up having to do.
that's what. Yeah,
The command ended up, because they were hearing all this, they would order fire, and some of them just wouldn't do it. So they actually would pull out that group and put in fresh
And
troops.
don't blame them.
because
From a war fighting standpoint, that's what you.
yeah,
do.
because if you need progress to continue to happen,
Right.
that's what you need to do. But as the basic soldier level, like you can't be mad at the sense of like they didn't want to pull the trigger
No, yeah, I mean you can't.
on either side.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, and that's not to sound like weak or hippie or whatever you want to call it. It is just from a war fighting stance in the sense of like the lowest level soldier. When you do something like that, it's kind of like, well, you've lost everything that you were fighting for. And it's like the hate is
You lost
gone,
the
the
hate
anger,
is gone.
the
Yeah.
anger is gone.
because they're
like-
human just like I am.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
you
and
learn-
especially if you had a 5-hour conversation with this guy,
Oh yeah,
and you
spend
start
all
finding
day.
ways that you relate to one another, like
Oh yeah,
Yep.
especially if you had wife, kid.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you
They're
start
showing
making
each
that
other their pictures of their families.
right. You
know?
start making that
now it makes it
regular
harder to
life
kill that person.
connection. You just
Mhm.
my target is now a human being
Yep.
and a
Exactly.
father like I am. You know.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, you know, but there were still, even in those groups, there were still the ones that like never came out of the trench.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
it wasn't
all the
like
time.
everybody. Yeah. There you still had the guy.
They're watching
like
this like,
Chris.
you fucking bad, you traitors, you know, everything like that.
Yeah.
Dude, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I would have
Yeah.
came out.
Everybody's having a good
I
time.
was
Where's
probably,
Chris?
I was probably the guy down
I
there
got
still-
him. I got him.
I'm cleaning my shit like
Yeah.
you motherfuckers.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when they come back, I'd probably look at them and be like,
Fuck y'all, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
"Hey, good luck tomorrow."
So
Yeah.
When
the
they
most-
shoot you in the
While
fucking
they're having a
face,
good
Yeah.
day, Chris over there checking out the bolt action loud. Clack, clack, clack.
Yeah. So the most.
I'd probably taken advantage of like getting out of the trench to take a piss.
Yeah.
I probably would have been like behind the trench, like pissing, like, "You guys play your
I
game."
think I would have
Yeah.
walked over to
Or
the
just
drill
go-
line,
go-
took a shit,
yeah.
and came
Yeah.
back.
Hey man,
over.
what's your latrine situation?
Yeah. Merry
go
Christmas.
find somewhere, rub one out, and
Yeah.
you know.
Hey, and then get back in your hole the next morning, and you
Yeah.
see him like put his hat on, and you're like, "I got you, bitch!"
Yeah. Yep.
Shit.
So, but yeah, there are still the ones that were pissy, and they were mad at their own guys for it. So,
But you can't blame them. Again,
No,
how am I gonna
no.
get home? It's through them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and some of them were just so fucking hard-headed about it. You know, it's like, so the most famous cockhead of all time, Hitler, was part. His unit was a part of this troop, or this truce. Sorry.
Right.
So he completely disagreed with it, and he quoted. He said, "Such things should not happen in wartime. Have you no German sense of honor?"
See,
That's your true believer, though.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's your But well,
See,
this was it. This
that's
was
a
even
man-
before all this fucked up shit happened to him.
Right, but
That's
I'm
just
just
the way
saying.
he
But
felt.
there is
He
a
was
mind of
already-
a. He
Yeah.
knows there's a task at
He is
hand.
born, bred, and bleeding Germany.
Germany.
Yeah.
You know, and as a soldier, he wanted Germany to win. You know,
Could you
why are we
imagine
fucking around?
the guy that was like friends with Hitler, like at the lower ranks?
Yeah.
Right, he was the one that like, oh, dude, he's
Yeah.
actually a cool
And he-
guy.
and
He's
he-
a really
yeah.
good artist. You know,
And
have you
he-
seen his
yeah.
paintings?
Yeah.
But like, could you imagine that guy goes out and like shakes hands with like the British and comes back and he's like, Adolf, like, guess what I just did? And he just looks at him like, fuck you.
Yeah,
Done.
I'll remember this.
It's probably the first guy
And
he
then,
killed.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then then like
What
you're
he got-
sitting in your living room and you hear Adolf just took power of like Germany and you're like, oh fuck,
Maybe this is.
he's gonna get
Yeah,
my
we
ass.
gotta move.
And like the SS show up at your door and they're like,
Yeah.
you remember when he shook hands with the British bitch? And you're like,
Yeah.
I didn't do
Yeah,
it.
it was.
Walk in, what is
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Exactly.
The brown shirts.
Yep.
That poor guy.
Oh my God.
He came back excited to tell his best friend, and Adolf was like,
Yeah.
you'll end up in a concentration camp.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Him and his giant mustache that he had at the time.
Yeah, he spit on the motherland.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or fatherland, whatever maternal.
Yeah, whatever they choose. But yeah, so
Overall, it was a good day. They
I think so.
They consider it a miracle.
I would say so.
Yeah.
well, you know, even when historians talk about it now, like some guys that are highly educated on it that I watched, you know, they even said like, you're not gonna believe what I'm gonna tell you.
Mhm.
Right.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
this actually happened. This
Yeah,
is not
I was
folklore.
there,
This
you
is
know.
not,
Right.
you know, something that's made up. This is something that we've confirmed through facts, through history, through letters and pictures and notes and,
Yep.
and everything else. Like, this legitimately happened for the first time. You know, maybe not. Some of the British and some of the Germans even wrote probably for the first time in warfare, has this ever happened? And I'm sure there's other instances, but
Well,
I'm
I
just
think
saying,
there's a couple in the Civil War, nothing like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, just Union, Confederate, you know, sip of whiskey, smoke a couple
go
of
back to doing what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
But nothing of this
Like this
magnitude,
scale,
I guess you
yeah.
can say.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, this never happened again.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, this is a one and only time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, like, you know, they even historians are like, this has been proven, it happened. A lot of people know about it. There's a lot of eyewitnesses. There's all these things, and I'm sure it's just like, it is that thing of, you know, even in the Civil War, you can understand little truces like that because you're in your
Country.
home country.
Right. Yeah,
This is two foreign armies
totally
fighting each other
Yeah.
in a foreign land,
Yeah.
and they fucking bond over Silent Night and Christmas trees. Like,
But I would call it a miracle. I
Yeah,
really
it
would.
is.
It
Yep.
is a miracle.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, so I saw it, and it didn't. It was kind of like an unknown soldier quote. It was all I know is it came from a doctor. Is all I can find.
Okay.
But when he talked about just like the overall, the way he was feeling, he says, "War is not glorious. It's bloody, messy, sweaty, hungry, thirsty, and traumatic. But this was one moment in time that calls for the use of the word glorious, when man can lay down their arms and set aside differences and just celebrate with each other and to be human."
That took. I think that took a lot to do.
yeah.
Because there's I mean, dude, it meant like from leading up to that, we're talking about you're just like fuck you, like how dare you, it's a lot of
Right.
pride to be swallowed to be able to step up
Yeah.
out of that and go shake this
And
dude's
go
hand,
shake this dude's hand.
Yeah, it's almost like
I just have a feeling these three here were gonna.
we would probably, and that's
We'd
what
have
I'm
been with
saying.
old 8 off there.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, I'm not.
Unless they had alcohol, I'd be like, huh, sake?
Yeah,
Something,
yeah. Sake, woof.
But-
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't have got me out of the trench until they're like, Chris, they don't have corned beef over there. They have something different.
Yeah.
And I probably would have been like,
They got
They
schnitzel.
got- yeah, they got sauerkraut.
They got
wings.
sauerkraut.
listen, I ain't gonna talk to nobody. I'm not wandering over there for a minute. Though.
Yeah,
I'll be
Yeah.
back.
Don't fucking touch me.
Yeah, don't fucking touch me.
But
Stay
like,
away from me.
But like I said, I give a lot of credit to the guys that did
You
go
do.
out there and do it.
Yes.
And
Because I don't think I would have been. I think I'd have been too selfish in the sense of,
Mhm.
I would have been the salty guy that's like, how fucking dare you come out the trench like in the middle of
I
conduct,
tell you, for a sip of whiskey, my ass would have been out there.
But that's what I'm saying. If you had something different.
I don't know if I'd have shook hand. I'd have went,
yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I want to make eye contact.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if I would have.
Yeah.
And I think what it really boils down to is I don't think I would have wanted to see the faces of the people that I was going to have to kill the next day.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's really what it would boil
But you're
down
right. That is you're right though. But that you did. It is selfish reasons. But you're right. I don't want to look at the guys I'm getting ready to shoot at. Come tomorrow, unless they
because
say
the more
so.
I know, the less likely I am to perform my job.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And when I say that, it's not some people are like, oh, the less you know. Like, no, there's a difference between a military briefing on your enemy, your target, or whatever you're pursuing, and then there's actually knowing the motherfucker.
Yeah.
Right.
So
two different things.
The less I know about them, and the more military briefing or whatever I have on it,
Keep
the
it
more
professional.
capable I am to do my job.
Yeah.
But once I start to understand this person on a human level,
Don't tell me they coach softball.
yeah, right. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Because there's that
I
connection.
could walk out there and this guy's like, oh, like I have a softball team. I'm like, oh, well, so do I. And then we start talking, and then I'm like, walking back, and I see myself getting the hole, look over, and I see him getting the hole directly across. That's where it would fuck me up. Is like that guy gets in the hole directly across from me. So I know every time my rifle comes up to fire, I'm firing in his direction. I'd probably be that guy that's like, way left field, and then get shot in the face by the same guy.
You get one.
Just aiming all
They'd be like,
around
well, how did
everywhere.
Chris die? Well, I don't know. He popped up out of the hole and he shot wide left. And
He was just
and
shooting
took
up in the
around
air
right
for
to the
some
face.
reason.
Like, am I like the guy that I tried to keep from shooting shot me?
Yeah.
So, that's what I'm saying.
That's why you gotta respect mafia hitmen. I mean, they know a guy they can kill.
Oh,
no
yeah,
problem.
for sure.
Yeah,
You know
like, oh, we're boys.
Oh, Joey, I've known you since you were a baby.
Oh, really? Yeah. Bah!
Yeah.
Take me to the park, and as you're driving, he's just like,
Yeah.
I love you, man.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that.
One eye bulging
I'm
out.
like, I love you.
Yeah, I love you.
I tried.
I'll take care of your sister.
No, I would let the rope go and be like, I'm sorry, I had to try.
That's right. You got
Anybody ask, he just miraculously came back to life.
Yeah. Just get out of here and don't ever
Yeah,
let me see
don't
your
come
face
back.
again.
But yeah. But for anybody watching this is something to think about. Just remember, you can stop fighting for a day with your in-laws, your family, whoever it is, and you can go right back to that shit on December 26th. They did it in World War I. You can do it at home this Christmas.
One day.
You know?
Yes, it's just one day of peace.
Sing on Silent Night and shut the fuck up.
You don't even have to do it for Christmas. I mean, you think about everything that they went through, and they still had the balls to do that. You're just dealing with petty arguments with your family or whatever. I don't know everybody's situation, but I could almost guarantee you it's not near as bad as what they had to go through.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
you can get over it.
Not to
and
a lot of respect.
Yeah, take the chance and
those guys stopped a war for a day.
Yes.
For a day to
So,
celebrate Christmas.
Yeah.
So you can stop your bullshit.
Yes.
For one day.
Make amends. Be an adult. You know.
Like I said, you can go right back to fighting the motherfuckers on the 26th.
Yeah.
You can at least take 2 days.
Yeah. Exactly.
Take 2 days off.
But try not to.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna quit it for a day, you might as well quit it. Period.
Yeah. Be like what they wanted, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They probably wanted to lay down their arms and go home. So.
Go home.
Yep.
But thank you guys for watching. We really hope that everybody has a safe, fun, Christmas. I'm not the guy to be like happy holidays. We are a Merry Christmas family in this.
We are Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I will say Merry
Happy
Christmas.
Hanukkah.
Happy
Whatever.
Hanukkah.
Yes,
Happy New Year's.
Hanukkah. Yes.
But enjoy your time. At least take the time to call your buddies. Let them know Merry Christmas. Because I will say, just to get on that a little bit, is like I've had a lot of guys reach out, and it's always during the holidays when these guys are down the most. And I've been there myself. I understand what they're going through. You miss your family, or you feel segregated, or you feel alone, or whatever. So like, I know everybody's busy with gifts and decorating and planning these events, but at least try to pick one buddy, pick one guy, or pick, or female, whoever you served with, pick one person and shoot them a text or shoot them a phone call saying just
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, love you, thinking about you, whatever.
Yeah.
And you will not understand, you won't even believe it until like you hear it later on, like how far that goes.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
it
yeah.
means a lot.
Because the only way to start reaching out.
Yep.
you know
Yeah,
what I
because
mean?
you might spark them to reach out to somebody else. It sparks them to reach out to another
Yeah.
person that does get to that person that is alone and probably
Yes.
drinking themselves in a corner or whatever, feeling down and out. So
Yeah.
just take the time, pick one person,
Yeah.
and say Merry Christmas to you.
Show them that they're loved.
Yes.
Yeah. But thank you guys for watching. Have a
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And if you want to know more about World War One, like let us know, and we'll decide whether or not we're gonna do
Yeah.
a segment on it.
We'll give you somebody's number.